So you've probably heard the buzz, right? This idea that AI tools are making you faster, just way more efficient, especially if you're, say, a software developer.
Yeah, it's almost become like common knowledge, accepted wisdom.
Exactly. But what if, for some people, maybe for experienced developers, the reality is actually surprisingly different, even maybe slower?
That is precisely the question this really interesting new study dug into. We're going to dive deep into it today. It's a rigorous real-world look at AI's productivity impact on seasoned open source developers.
And it really does challenge a lot of the common assumptions floating around.
It absolutely does.
So our mission for you today in this deep dive is to unpack this, well, fascinating research. We want to understand its, frankly, surprising findings and explore why what we think AI does might be really different from what's actually happening on the ground.
Think of it as your shortcut to understanding a really critical, real-world measurement of AI productivity. No hype, just data.
Okay, let's get into it. How did they even set this study up? The how behind it all?
Right. So they used what's called a randomized controlled trial, an RCT, basically the gold standard for this kind of research.
Yeah.
They brought in 16 experienced open source developers. And these weren't just any developers they had. On average, about 5 years of experience working specifically on the mature projects involved in the study.
Wow, 5 years on the same projects.
Yeah. And these are significant projects, too. We're talking repositories averaging like 23,000 stars on GitHub. Big, complex, established code bases.
So definitely not beginners tinkering around. These are skilled people.
Highly skilled, exactly. And the setup was pretty neat. They had these developers tackle 246 tasks, real tasks, mind you, on these live open source repositories.
So actual bugs, feature requests, that kind of thing.
Precisely. And here's the crucial part. For each task, it was randomly decided whether the developer was allowed to use AI tools or not.
So completely random assignment. No one could pick the easy tasks for AI or anything like that.
Correct. Pure randomization. And when AI was allowed, they were using tools that were, state-of-the-art in early 2025. Mainly Cursor Pro, that's a popular AI code editor, and Claude 3.5 or 3.7 Sonnet LLMs.
Got it. So what makes this different from other studies we hear about? Because you often see headlines claiming massive speedups.
That's a key point. A lot of earlier research, the stuff often cited for big speed gains, used synthetic tasks like artificial coding puzzles or really simple challenges.
Things that don't really reflect the messiness of real-world coding.
Exactly. This study used real, unfiltered bug reports and feature requests straight from these complex repositories. A whole different ballgame.
Okay, that makes sense. And the measurement was different too, right? Not just lines of code.
Right. Instead of fuzzy metrics like lines of code, which, let's be honest, AI can inflate easily without actual progress or even number of commits, they focus on a single fixed outcome. Completion time.
How long did it actually take to get the task done, start to finish?
Bingo. A much cleaner, more meaningful measure of actual productivity, we think.
That feels way more robust. Okay, so we have experienced devs, real tasks, randomized AI use, and measuring actual completion time. What did people expect to happen?
The expectations. Well, before they even started, the developers themselves were asked to predict how much faster AI would make them.
What do they think?
They predicted, on average, a pretty significant 24% reduction in the time it would take them to complete the tasks.
24% faster. Okay, that's substantial.
And what's really interesting is, even after they finished the study, having used the tools, their estimate was still around a 20% speed up. They genuinely felt like it was helping them quite a bit.
Wow. So their perception, even after doing the work, was that AI made them faster. What about the experts? You mentioned economists and ML folks.
They were even more bullish. Experts in economics and machine learning, when surveyed, predicted AI would slash completion times by, get this, 38% to 39%.
Whoa, okay. Nearly 40% faster. So huge expectations all around. Developers thought 24%, experts closer to 40%. What did the study actually find? What was the reality?
Well, this is where it gets really, really interesting. The big reveal. The study found that allowing developers to use AI tools actually increased their completion time.
Increased?
Yes, by 19%.
Wait, hold on. Not sped up by 20% or 40%? It slowed them down by almost 20%.
That's correct. Slower. 19% slower, on average, when using the AI tools compared to when they weren't.
That is genuinely shocking, especially given how confident everyone was, including the developers, after using the tools.
Right.
A 19% slowdown is huge. There's a massive disconnect there. What on earth was going on? Did the researchers figure out why?
They certainly tried. They didn't just stop at that headline number. They really dug into the why, using everything they had: screen recordings, developer interviews, surveys. They investigated something like 20 potential factors.
20 factors, okay.
Yeah, they grouped them into things like direct productivity losses, potential issues with the experiment itself, factors that might boost human performance without AI, and factors that specifically limited the AI's performance.
Okay, that sounds thorough. So what were the main culprits for the slowdown? Which factors had strong evidence?
They narrowed it down to 5 key factors that really seem to explain most of it. The first one is, well, quite revealing psychologically. It was over-optimism about AI usefulness.
Meaning,
even though the data showed they were slower, the developers kept using the AI because they believed it was helping them speed up. Their perception overrode the reality of their performance.
So they thought they were being faster, but the clock told a different story. It's like vigorously cleaning your desk instead of starting the big project feeling productive.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually, yeah. The second factor was fascinating: high developer familiarity with the repositories.
How does familiarity slow things down with AI? You'd think it would help.
Counterintuitively, developers were slowed down more by AI on tasks where they already had a lot of prior experience or didn't need to look up much external information. One developer literally said something like, look, if I'm the main person who knows this super specialized part of the code, there's just no way the AI agent mode can do better than me.
Agent mode, meaning the AI trying to do more of the task itself.
Right, taking a more active role. So the deeper your own expertise in that specific area, the less helpful and apparently more hindering the AI became. It suggests AI might be less beneficial for true experts working in their own niche.
Okay, that makes kind of sense. What was number 3?
Number 3. The large and complex repositories themselves. These weren't small, simple projects. We're talking, on average, over 1 million lines of code, often a decade old or more.
Right, huge code bases.
And the AI tools just struggled with that scale and complexity. Developers reported the AI making weird changes in other parts of the code unexpectedly, or just failing to apply edits correctly in really large files.
They spend time fixing the AI's mistakes.
Exactly. Cleaning up after the AI, which obviously eats into time. That leads nicely into the fourth factor: low AI reliability.
The AI just wasn't good enough.
Well, specifically when using Cursor, the code editor, developers ended up accepting less than 44% of the AI's suggestions or generation.
Wow, less than half were actually useful enough to keep.
Yep, which means a lot of time was spent just reading, reviewing, testing, maybe tweaking the AI's code, only to throw it away or heavily modify it more often than not.
That sounds incredibly inefficient.
It is. Quantitatively, they found about 9% of the total time developers spent with AI was purely on reviewing and cleaning up its output. And get this, 75%, 3/4 of the developers, said they read every single line of AI-generated code.
Oof, okay, that's a major time sink right there.
Yeah.
Checking its homework constantly. What was the 5th factor?
The 5th one was about implicit repository context. Basically, all that undocumented knowledge, the tribal wisdom, the history.
The stuff that's not written down anywhere but that experienced devs just know.
Precisely. Tacit knowledge. AI, obviously, doesn't have access to that. It behaved, as the researchers put it, like a new contributor, someone who doesn't understand the weird historical reasons for why something is built a certain way, or the subtle, weird cases of backwards compatibility, or even just the best place in the code to make a particular change.
So the AI suggestions might be technically correct in isolation, but wrong in the context of that specific project's quirks.
You got it. Making the outputs less useful, requiring more human oversight and correction, slowing things down again. It kind of relates back to the familiarity point, too, that the humans had this context, the AI didn't.
Okay. Those 5 factors, over-optimism, developer familiarity, code-based complexity, AI reliability, and lack of implicit context, paint a pretty clear picture of why the slowdown happened in this specific scenario.
They really do. And it's important to note they did look into other things, like maybe the developers were just learning the AI tools, or maybe it was the specific AI models used, but the evidence suggested those weren't the main drivers, or the effect was unclear.
So they were pretty confident it wasn't just like a bad experiment setup.
Yeah, they were quite thorough in ruling out those kinds of artifacts.
Okay, so stepping back. What does this all mean for you, the listener? This isn't just some niche finding about open source coding, right?
Not at all. I mean, this deep dive is really a critical look at how we measure and, maybe more importantly, how we perceive AI's impact in any complex real-world job.
It really hammers home the need for, well, proper field experiments like this one, rather than just relying on forecasts or how people feel things are going.
Absolutely. Especially as AI gets woven into more and more fields, healthcare, finance, education, you name it, we need ground truth.
But we should be careful not to overgeneralize these results either, right?
Definitely. That's a crucial caveat. This study looked at a very specific group, experienced developers working on large, mature, complex open source projects, people who knew the code bases well. The findings are totally consistent with the idea that AI could still give significant speedups in other situations. Think about, say, smaller projects or brand new greenfield projects built from scratch.
Or maybe developers working on code they're not familiar with, where they don't have that deep tacit knowledge.
Exactly. In those cases, AI might be a huge help. Context really, really matters here.
And it's not like this is the final word on AI for developers forever, is it? The tech moves so fast.
Not by a long shot. That's maybe the most exciting part. AI capabilities are evolving incredibly rapidly. The paper itself even mentions some preliminary evidence that newer, fully autonomous AI agents, though still imperfect, are already making immense progress on these kinds of complex tasks.
So even in this tricky setting, big speedups might still be coming down the line.
It certainly seems like a salient possibility, as the researchers put it, which raises a really interesting question for all of us, I think.
Which is,
how are our own expectations, our workflows, our ways of working going to need to adapt as AI keeps getting better? How do we bridge this gap we saw between perception and reality, especially when the reality itself might change quickly?
That's a lot to think about. So, wrapping up today's deep dive, we've peeled back the layers on this really surprising study. For these experienced open source devs on big, complex projects, the early 2025 AI tools actually led to a slowdown.
Yep, a 19% slowdown, despite everyone, developers and experts included, predicting significant speedups.
And the reasons seem to boil down to a mix of human psychology, the limits of AI in complex context, and the sheer depth of expert human knowledge.
The core insight really is that AI's impact isn't simple. It's nuanced, it depends heavily on the context, and it challenges us to look past the benchmarks and the initial hype.
So, the final thought for you to chew on. As AI continues its relentless advance, how will you personally learn to tell the difference between its perceived benefits and its actual benefits in your own work or life? How can you make sure you're using these incredibly powerful tools in ways that truly amplify what you do, rather than getting caught in a cycle where they look helpful but might actually be slowing you down?